I kind of want to start with the Vikings because that is your squad, and I'm sure you've been following them as closely as any of them, and see where you're at with that one as one of the first future plays that you're going to give out here.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite of a homer. I am usually just very pessimistic. As a Viking fan, we never have nice things. It doesn't end well. It doesn't go well. But I have to admit, I know the schedule is tough, but I mean, you just look at the roster. Now you can say who's going to play quarterback. That's a fair question. I don't have a great answer. And you're going to hope and pray that either Sam Darnold or McCarthy give you something. But the rest of the roster is pretty damn good. I don't know that they have a good defense, but I think with a good home crowd, with Brian Flores, who's a tremendous defensive coordinator who they're able to retain, and all the weapons they have on offense with Jefferson, Addison, a really good offensive line, which was an issue for years, Aaron Jones at running back. To me, at 6.5, they're undervalued. You can get them like 11-1 to win the division. You can say, oh, they're not going to win the division. All these teams are better than them. They probably are better than the Vikings. But if you just look every year throughout the NFL, almost every year, it's inevitable. You get a 3-1, 5-1, 8-1 winner for a division because – look, it's the NFL. It's a lot of randomness. We think we know, but we don't really know. Look at the Texans last year. I mean, you just go through year by year. There was a year where Washington, I think they were the football team then in 2020. They won it like 20-1. Every year you get a long shot division winner just because, again, it's small sample size. It's randomness. It's turnovers. We think we know these teams, but we don't know as much as we think. And I think that division, because it's so good and so competitive with the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikes, I don't know that anyone's going to pull away and win 13-plus games. I think everything can be condensed tight a little bit where the winner might get like 11 or so. That might be enough. Probably 10's cutting it short. But, could with a good coaching staff, could Sam Darnold find lightning in a bottle and get this team to like 10, 11 wins and be within shouting distance of the division? I don't think it's far-fetched.
So would you lay that or take that juice there at like, you can get 11-1 for the Vikes to win the North? Are you there with it?
Yeah, I think if you're optimistic about the Vikings, and by the way, I do like them week 1-2 against the Giants. Yeah, I know that's your squad, but look, this is not a brilliant or profound handicap, but the Vikings just have a much better team, much more talent than the Giants. Giants sounds like Neighbors is going to be a hell of a player every day on Twitter. You see him doing something in training camp, and they've got a player here and there, but they do not have a lot of talent. I think Dable's a wizard, a magician. He's a tremendous coach, and they're crazy. If these whispers that he's on the hot seat are insane to me, but there's just not a lot of talent, and that's not like a great home field advantage, the Giants. So yeah. I do like the Vikings week 1, but go back to your question. Yeah, I think 11-1's worth a shot. You can tell me, hey, maybe just to make the playoffs, like plus 230, plus 250 shop around. Maybe that's the way to go because the NFC is not that good. And if you think the Vikings are going to be decent, maybe the division is far. Maybe the division is a stretch to get to like the 11 wins you're going to need, but they can certainly squeak out like a 9-8 and get a wild card. So maybe you take a unit or a half unit and divide it. Hey, half unit to win the division, half unit to just make the playoffs. DraftKings does have these markets. I don't know if we're supposed to mention or not mention any specific books.
You're good.
To win a wild card where it's a two-pronged handicap where they can't win the division, they can't miss the playoffs, but to specifically be a wild card, I think the Vikings are like plus 550 in that market. That might not be a bad way to approach it either.
Yeah, I can see that. I think when you're talking about the division, obviously, like the Lions sit atop of it in preseason projections, and rightfully so. Like we've never legitimately had a reason to really buy into the Lions to this extent, I would say. And we've now seen it enough that they've gotten to the championship game. We can at least bank on them being a team that can put points up on the board. I would say their defense is still really good as well, especially rushing the quarterback. But then you've got the like you said, everybody sort of seems to be not that far apart. When you think of the Bears, also same concept. Like this is the most legitimate. Maybe the Bears will be good this year that we've had in like 5 years. All that does to me is like actually just heighten the likelihood that the Vikings can be in this thing. The thing to me though is like you've got Sam Darnold starting, right? And it does seem like he's going to take the reins and they're going to put him through the punishment that will be like the first 5-ish 6 weeks of their season according to the schedule, which is not easy for this Vikings squad either, right? This whole division has some pretty tough matchups and bottom 10 in terms of like strength of schedule ease, at least according to like win totals right now. So I still think the Vikings are like sort of heightened by the fact that everybody around them is so in the same sort of stratosphere. At least the bottom 3, I would say, if you want to put the line slightly ahead of them. But the only team I haven't mentioned yet, are you high on the Packers? Would be one question I would ask adjacent to the Vikings.
Not respective to market to expectations. I do think them and the Texans are going to be everybody's darling. We're getting a prediction season the last few weeks here, or a month away or so from the season where, hey, people think an object in motion is going to stay in motion. They're good. They're young. They're going to continue to improve. They should have been in the NFC Championship game. The Texans obviously have an up arrow. I never know. I feel like these teams that are just so trendy, I always it raises my eyes a little, raises my antenna where it's like, I just don't know if I buy it. I don't know if it's, hey, you took one step forward, that means you're going to take a second step forward this year. Remember, this is, I mean, this is a Giant fan. They lost to the Giants pretty late in the season on Monday Night Football, and Tommy DeVito, it didn't look good. And I know they had a tremendous playoff game against Dallas, and they should have beaten San Francisco, really let that game get away from them, missed the kick. But I'm still not sold. It's been like a half a season of good play from Jordan Love. Right. They've got some good receivers, but we'll see what they can do on defense. They were horrible against the run. So I'm more generally pessimistic than optimistic, I would say.
And I'll just say, I'm not going to bring up the MVP or anything like that right now, but I would say if the Packers do really well, like let's say 10 to 11 wins, probably Jordan Love will be a candidate for like MVP, potentially offensive player of the year, something like that. I know it doesn't usually go to a QB, but could be in that if he's also rushing a bit. But yeah, I don't think that the criteria that it will take, which is being basically the quarterback of a really, really good team or an over achieving team, then you're in the race. But I don't see it yet for Love. And in fact, like I still don't even know if I see it yet from Christian Watson. I still need to see him healthy for a whole year, et cetera. So I'm with you on the hesitation there. And I think the values on the Vikings, like I'm just in agreement, however boring that might sound. I'm not going to lay any juice down with teams like the Lions or the Packers right now. I would rather just take 11-1 to the point that you're making. I will say it's an easy segue because last year you were pretty high on the Jets, and I know you want to talk about them right now. And you kind of almost went against your own rule last year because they were a darling as well, but you saw the reasons to like them, and then all that just went down the drain when the Achilles was torn in the first 8 minutes or whatever for Aaron Rodgers. So now you've got 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, almost vice presidential candidate Aaron Rodgers, according to him, coming out and coming back from that. Like, what are you doing with the Jets this year?
I'm going back to the well. Look, it didn't work. He got hurt 4 plays in. We know how it ended. And maybe he would have gotten hurt eventually anyway because that offensive line was really bad. I think they've done a ton to address the offensive line through the draft, trade, free agency. They got a whole new unit. And look, as bad as it was last year, disaster season, couldn't have gone worse. 4 plays in, Aaron Rodgers is done. They still won 7 games, and they won 7 games with a quarterback who will probably never play again in the NFL. When you look at the guys who threw passes for them, I don't know that anyone's ever going to throw a pass in the NFL that played for them last year. Maybe Zach Wilson, but he's probably a third stringer for Denver. Think about that. They don't even have a backup quarterback that played for them last year. It's all third stringer. Zach Wilson is going to be behind Nix and Stidham. He's a third stringer. Tim Boyle's not even going to be in the NFL probably. Right. And then who's the other? Oh, Trevor Siemian, who I don't even think is in the NFL. Those were their quarterbacks, and they won 7 games. Not like they won 3 or 4. Their defense is loaded. Their roster is loaded. Their schedule, and I think to win the division is the best way to attack it.
Yes.
As long as you get 80% of what Rodgers was a few years ago, I think that's plenty. They've got a top 5 or 10 receiver in Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, tremendous player. I just think they're loaded. And you look at the rest of the division, the Bills have just a brutal schedule. They have to play every team that was in the conference title game last year: Ravens, Chiefs, 49ers, Lions. They also have to play the Jets twice, the Dolphins twice, and they play at the Texans. That's 9 of the 17 games for the Bills. That's brutal. Yeah. Look at Miami, their other competitor. They struggle mightily in cold weather. They are fatally flawed, in my opinion. Look at them late in the season. They have road games at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, at Cleveland, and at the Jets. So how is that going to go if that's a tight division race? They have to win those games in cold weather. To me, the Jets, okay, tough game week 1 against the 49ers. Absolutely. After that, it really eases up where you get a lot of Titans and Patriots and Steelers and Broncos. It's not the Patriots. It's not that hard of a schedule. They have a major advantage, I think, in terms of the schedule. If you go to DraftKings or any of these books, opponents' season wins combined, projected season wins just based on the win totals. The Bills' opponents are projected to win 142 games. Dolphins' opponents are projected to win 140 games. Jets' opponents are only projected to win 120 games. So I'm ready for pain again. I believe in the Jets here.
I'm with you. I mean, they've got a top 5 easiest schedule in the league right here, according to like win totals, to just say what you just said in a different way in terms of the combined win totals for their opponents. Like the only thing the thing that I will add to, actually, because I have them plus 340 to win the AFC East right now. I think you can still get it about that plus 330 of what I saw on FanDuel a little while ago. So there's that price is still there. You're basically saying, like, at this point, that you believe in the existing parts so much that you've got Aaron Rodgers. And I will add the point that Tyrod Taylor is going to be a way better backup than anybody you saw play for the Jets last year. As a Giants fan last year, I was like, can we just keep Tyrod Taylor in? It's at least like less stressful than having everybody else that was coming in, including Daniel Jones, by the way. But yeah, now we're talking about him as the backup in the event that something happens to Rodgers. And obviously they'll still be, if Rodgers does go down, they're faced with the same question that they had last year, which was like, how much can we mortgage and sell to get somebody in here? And they said, no, forget it. We'll just trash the season. But if this year it happens, you're not going to expect the 40-year-old to come back from this a second time in a row. It just ain't in the cards. So at that point, now you're probably talking about them trying to find somebody else to maintain this. They're not going away. This is a win this year situation for the Jets with their quarterback until they get somebody else that they can come in and groom for the future. So I fully agree on that. I will just moving along to the division here real quick. So your belief in Buffalo and Miami in terms of how those two teams will end the season, like how do you project those two?
I think they'll be good. I think they're playoff teams, probably borderline playoff team in Miami's case. Miami has a really soft beginning to the schedule, so they should bang some wins. They're a team that kind of predictable in a way. If they're playing a team that's not very good, they beat up on them. If they're playing a team that's as good or better than them with a good defense or the weather's cold, they really can't live up to them. And that Chiefs game in the playoffs has to stick out. I mean, I know it's only one game, but that has to be just a blaring red flag here, where it's like, wait, we couldn't get the ball past midfield. I know they scored one touchdown, it was like on a broken play, but Tua really just shrinks when he's outdoors. And look, last year, the narrative was that Tua, can he stay healthy? Can he stay on the field? Last year he was healthy, but you know what? That really hasn't been the norm for him. So he's still one bad hit away from who knows what. Bills, I think, I just, again, when you have Allen, you have such a high floor, but I mean, they lost a lot both sides of the ball, and it just feels like they missed their window. And again, when you have Allen, you're always going to be pretty good. It just, I don't know, that 13 seconds against Kansas City, the game where they, they choked it away and they gave up the field goal. It just doesn't feel like they've ever recovered from that. They've had bad losses in the playoffs since, home losses in the playoffs. McDermott is basically throwing everybody under the bus but himself, offensive coordinator, special teams coach. I just don't know. It feels like that team is just not good enough around Allen.
That's the only thing that I'll disagree with at this point, is that I think, not that what you're saying is wrong, I just think we've gone too far the other way from how much everybody loved them coming into last year. I would almost venture to guess that not having let's call it, I don't want to call it distraction, but this focus on Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis goes 8 for 130 for 4 touchdowns, and then he goes 0 for 0 for 0 for 0 for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. So it was just so much up and down that perhaps playing Shakir, who always seemed to be a favorite target of Allen in the first place, similar player coming in with Curtis Samuel. You've got the big rook Coleman as well, and then you've got 2 really good tight ends, including Kincaid, who could come on. I still think there's something there because of what Allen can do. I don't think he needs a massive play wide receiver, and I think getting Matt Milano back at linebacker is the only other thing that I was looking at with the Bills that had me going, all right, I still take the money better than 3-1 for the Jets to win this division. I think there's so many holes in both the teams that are expected to finish above them that you go with it. And so I'm there with it. I think Breece Hall has a massive year, maybe not nearly as many receptions as he had last year, but because finally they have a quarterback, he'll actually be able to run the ball. So that's my favorite play from this division as well, from the AFC East. Anything else that you wanted to throw out before we dip here? No pressure.
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything. No, nothing else. I mean, I would just say that, once you're betting this stuff now, if you're betting this stuff now, not that you're late, not that you can't win. And look, we got shows to do. I do the same thing. So it's, you got to play the ball where it lies. But these markets have matured. These lines, these win totals, they've been out since February, March. So they've kind of been molded into shape. A lot of them are probably where they're supposed to be, where, a lot of the best stuff does come earlier in the process. But excited, man. Excited football season. Yeah. It's a month away. And once it comes, it's every day. It's Saturday college football, Sunday NFL, Monday night football, Thursday night football, and you look up and it's like week 8 and you blink. It's so much fun once it gets here.
Hell yeah, man. Well, appreciate the time, Will. One more time, I'll just remind you guys too, we got the Shoulda Bet More pod with the Go Boys. Some really good guests on there, man, for sure. I know you'll probably do a few more baseball things here and there, but obviously going to be really focused on football moving forward, I imagine, right?
Absolutely. Nice little balance of football, baseball, whatever's topical. And like you said, the guests have been tremendous. Had Steve Fezzik on today's episode, so I encourage everyone to check it out, man. I appreciate it. It was fun catching up. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll talk soon. Appreciate it, Will.